All right, we're going to wait for the notifications to go out, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to give it just a minute here. All right, looks like we have a signal, folks. Do we have a signal? Yes, we do. All right. Am I coming in loud and clear? A little bit of technical difficulties again. All right. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the face of this plane. Under the firmament, which supports the waters above it, thus the sky being the color that it is. This is your host, Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. On the web at thefullertoninformer.com, WiFiDangers.com, 5GDangers.com, many other .coms, folks. Today, I want to talk to you about the infertility crisis, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We are in the midst of a crisis, ladies and gentlemen. I get emails from a lot of people about a lot of things. It's hard for me to get back to all of them, but I'll be honest with you. Some of them, really, they disturb me tremendously. And when I consider the behavior of the medical profession and the scientific community, in light of the present circumstances and plights and dilemmas that many people find themselves in, the behavior and just the overall mindset of these so-called experts is, quite frankly, it's deplorable, folks, okay? I live in a city, Fullerton, California, that's just loaded to the hilt with high schools and junior colleges and colleges. And they have the places where they train all these people to become these so-called public health experts. And folks, we've got a crisis on our hands that's actually being caused by the schools. For many years I have put out warnings about the dangers of these wireless devices in the laps of children. And I guess, for lack of a better word, the people that were involved in this in my community at the very early stages of this rollout are just absolutely pure. They're just pure evil, folks. Okay, there are no other words to describe them for their behavior. They're evil. They're going to pay the price. God will judge them. But what's happening, 12, 13 years later, after I started trying to warn people about putting these wireless devices in the laps of 10-year-olds, is now, when they finally find someone, they cannot have children. And so consequently, they flock to the medical system for solutions, right? And, if you're one of those county workers or government workers, you get these infertility treatments in your insurance, right? Because after all, if you're involved in the infertility crisis, you'll be given a pass on when you become infertile as a result, right? But there is a phenomenon, aside from the eggs being damaged in the young girls, the ovarian reserves being depleted in these young girls, the ovarian follicles being damaged in these young girls by the microwave transmitters that the school district has given them to keep in their laps all day while they're doing their homework, while they're playing their video games, and while they're in class. They cannot conceive children. Now, it is a widely known fact that experiments have been done for, I guess it's widely known for those who are in the know. But if you ask anybody in the school district, they're going to tell you that you're crazy. But microwave exposure in the direct vicinity of these young girls' abdomen causes two serious problems, okay? Microwaves damage the developing ovarian reserves of young girls. And that's why I would stand on the sidewalk with a 15-foot pole and two huge banners on the sidewalk. And on this pole had at least 10 or 15 placards naming the names of the administrators, and on the sidewalk, the banners explaining what wireless devices in the classrooms are doing to the children. And I would stand out there trying to expose how this stuff is going to cause an epidemic of infertility and cancer and autism and everything else, right? Well, you know, when I was out on the sidewalk in front of Troy High School, which is a really dangerous place to put your children, because they have these high-powered Wi-Fi access points and the walls are made out of sheet metal. They're painted over because those children over there got Stockholm Syndrome still. And I'll still talk about that place because some of the most evil people in the world work there because of what they're involved in this agenda and how they promoted it. But let's get back to what's happening to these young girls. So there was an experiment done years ago with rats, Wistar rats particularly, and a microwave transmitter was placed on the abdomen of these rats for 15 minutes a day for 15 days. Power level being very similar to that of a laptop or these tablets. And what they did after they conducted this experiment of exposing these Wistar rats' abdomen to a microwave transmitter for 15 minutes a day for 15 days, the rats were then sacrificed, and then they were analyzed, and it was determined that in these rats, that up to 75% of their ovarian reserves were depleted in these female Wistar rats. Now, let me repeat what I just said. 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks took out 75% of the ovarian reserves of these rats. That study is on WiFiDangers.com. This information was presented to school board members, school district employees, school officials, teachers. This information was put on the windshields of cars for several years at soccer games, baseball games, PTA fundraisers, back to school lights. I put tens of thousands of flyers on cars personally with my own two hands, my own 2 feet. Stood on the sidewalks with banners trying to warn people about this. And what did the parents do? Nothing. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because you're cowards. And guess what? Your children are going to suffer because of what you've done. Now, that's only part of the problem, you see, ladies and gentlemen. Because another component of all this microwave exposure in direct proximity to the abdominal areas of young girls, chronic exposure, and we're not talking about 15 minutes a day for 15 days, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about these things being in your children's lap from kindergarten because the school districts are handing these out like lollipops. And there's no warning to keep them out of their laps. There's no discussion of the dangers of the radiation on these things. Oh, but there's a Prop 65 warning when you walk into McDonald's because of the acrylamide, the French fries, right? Oh, but they don't want to tell you what these things are doing to your children. No. There's another problem that's happening now with young women, and it's called polycystic ovary syndrome. And this is another problem that is caused by microwave exposure. And what's really disgusting about this is, number one, how common it has become recently. And number two, how poorly it's understood and how little it's studied. But yet, it's a massive problem that's causing women to not be able to conceive children. Polycystic ovary syndrome, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we know, folks, what causes that. Now, when I talk about the betrayal of the educational system and the scientific community and the medical system, I'm not kidding, folks, because every time there's a massive problem, they never look for what the real cause is. They cover it up and come up with a toxic solution of literal lies, right? So that the culprits never arrested, the problem never gets solved, and the agenda continues its operation. If one will notice the contents of these fibroids, if you will, you'll notice the heavy metal concentration in these things, notably iron and copper and manganese, in these little growths encapsulated around the reproductive areas of a female, right? That block conception. So we've got a couple of things that are ruining the girls and the women. We've got the destruction of the ovarian reserves in adolescence from the microwave exposure in their labs. And then as they develop into young women and adult women, the continued microwave exposure in their labs. Yes, that's right. You women that like that laptop or that tablet in your lap and all the time, you think it's really chic because you get to wear your intellectual glasses because you're going blind from staring at the thing. And you think you're so chic, you're burning up your baby factory, okay? There was an individual, a very nefarious individual that happened to be involved in a school district in Fullerton. And when she was confronted with this information as a teacher, she pushed it back and said, we can't receive this information along with the principal, right? Well, it was my prayer that she would fall victim to the very thing she was failing to protect others from, and she has. And may I remind all of you the power of imprecatory prayer. Jesus tells us to love our enemies and pray for them and give them a chance to repent and to forgive them. But may I remind you that Almighty God has the last word in judgment. We've got young girls' ovarian reserves being burned up by the school district's technology programs, and I can't even begin to tell you how many different school boards over Southern California I presented this information to. And can I tell you something, ladies and gentlemen? Not one school board member in any of these school districts, not one city council member in any city council, not one county board of supervisors, not one county board of education member ever reached out to me and said, Joe Imbriano, what can we do to stop this? Every single one of them went along with it. the PTAs, the people that started these technology foundations, all of them turn their backs on the children. So the chickens have come home to roost. And now that you have taken, for the last 10, 11, 12 years, you have run your children through this system to where their ovarian reserves were being irradiated 24 hours a day thanks to your cooperation. And as parents, thanks to your involvement and cooperation, for taking those flyers off your windshield and throwing them in the trash, and especially you husbands, you men that call yourself men in Fullerton, you emasculated cowards, you will never have grandchildren because of what you've allowed to happen to your daughters. And I hope you're proud of yourselves. It's quite an accomplishment to betray your children so you can drink beer with your buddies. Isn't that a great trade-off? As you sit there and sip on your cinnamon-flavored, what is that stuff with the dragon on it? That cinnamon-flavored whiskey crap that's got hot pepper in it. What do they call that? With the dragon on it? Yeah, you know who you circus clowns are in my neighborhood. You know who you are. But my point is, now we've got, not only are the ovarian reserves depleted, we've got polycystic ovary syndrome. But there's some icing on this cake, folks. Let's not forget to throw this last thing in. And I've spoken about this multiple times and written about it on the Fullerton Informer. But chronic microwave exposure from Wi-Fi and all of these Wi-Fi-enabled devices, it causes a phenomenon called structural isomerism in the insulin receptors in your children and in your wife. You see, folks, when you manipulate the structural configuration of biologically active molecules that your body makes, when you alter the morphology, the structure, the arrangement, the configuration of the way something was designed by God to be in a three-dimensional matrix that it operates in, when you change its structure, morphology, configuration, you change its function. Have you ever tried to plug in an extension cord with a bent prong? Have you ever tried to plug in an extension cord with a missing prong? It doesn't work. Insulin receptors are extremely sensitive to the frequency of Wi-Fi, which they've specifically chosen. 2.4 gigahertz is one of the frequency bands of home Wi-Fi. The other one is 5 gigahertz. Now they've got 6 gigahertz. But 2.4 gigahertz happens to just turn out to be a very specific and magical number, because when that frequency is broadcast, it causes water molecules to rapidly oscillate back and forth on their axis so that the molecules can line up and try to stay in sync with the oscillation of the field charge of the microwave energy. It causes rapid vibration in the molecules. It's called dielectric heating. That's why it's used in microwave ovens. But when these water molecules rotate on their axis, they're doing it at 2.4 billion cycles or rotations, oscillations a second. Insulin receptors are affected by microwaves in a way that changes their configuration so they can't be effective in binding and regulating blood sugar levels. So not only does it make your daughters infertile, and maybe that's why the notifications aren't going out on this, because the title is a bit much, right? And they know it. The AI blocks this stuff. But Wi-Fi makes you gain weight. And it doesn't only make you gain weight by affecting the effectiveness of your insulin receptors by changing its three-dimensional structure, thus inhibiting its effectiveness at regulating blood sugar. But these microwave emissions also affect your body's ability to produce melatonin, which is a hormone that helps you sleep. So, and then when you have all of this blue light and this 5,000 Kelvin lighting from these new energy efficient light bulbs, people have daylight light bulbs on at night. They've got these headlights on the cars that are bright white. All the Teslas are 5,000 Kelvin projector beam LED, make you go blind, make you think it's daylight headlights. And that's why I have, I wear these ski goggles at night, because I can't stand driving with these things in my face, because they make you go blind. But not only that, they impact your ability to sleep. They make you think it's daylight and it takes you longer to fall asleep. So when you can't sleep and you're being microwaved and you're not producing melatonin, and then your body is being affected by the alteration of the effectiveness of the insulin receptors, you gain weight and you get sick and you're unhealthy. So thank you very much for all of your technological contributions to the destruction and demise of humanity. And I hope, and I pray in Jesus' name that at some point those of you involved in this will come clean. Because there is no forgiveness without repentance. You cannot be forgiven for wrongs that you don't choose to right. You understand me? To whom much is given, much is required. And when you're directly involved in this, and then you double down and make sure that not only are the microwave transmitters put in, but you also go on to promote the benefits of screens, there is a special place for you in hell for destroying children's ability to have children, for children's ability to have a healthy body, and for children's ability to be able to see. Because the eye is the window to the soul. It is the lamp of the body. And when you make children go blind by forcing them to stare at screens, and when you take their ability away to have children, you've now crossed a line. You've now crossed a big line. And that line is this. You see, God has ordained at the moment of conception that indigo flash of light when one egg penetrates the zona pellucida, and that fertilized egg instantly in a billionth of a second gives off this indigo flash of light, which, by the way, you sick bastards that invented all this Wi-Fi crap use that indigo light color to let people know that the thing's transmitting. Did you know that the same color of the Wi-Fi router little indicator light is the same color that is given off at the moment of conception? I could go on about this stuff, but let me tell you something. When you interfere, look at me, listen to me, and I hope you get this. I hope somehow this gets to your sorry, pathetic existence of a half human that you've turned into, and you know who you are. This is a very specific warning to you. You are interfering with the creation of eternal beings. You are interfering with God's plan. You are interfering with the Almighty Creator of all things' plan to populate heaven by stopping people from being born. And you sick, evil bastards knew it, and you made a joke out of this, and you doubled down and began to create these little circus club social cliques that turned into nonprofit entities to fundraise to bring this weaponized technology into the classrooms in my community. And for all you alcoholic bimbo moms that went to these PTA meetings and fundraisers and got all drunk and made complete asses of yourselves in the process and turned your back on this information and did this to your daughters, God help you. Where's your husbands now, huh? You know who you are. You're a fraud. You filthy cowards, right? And so we now have a new technology that's being rolled out where they're going to use some more frequency bands on us. I've told you that 2.4 gigahertz is the magic water frequency. And it's all about frequency, folks. You know, it just so happened of all the channels they want to use for Wi-Fi, they didn't use, 640 kilohertz or 105.9 megahertz. They used 2.4 gigahertz. There's a trillion channels they could have used. But they chose the exact one in which the maximum dielectric loss of water molecules begins at. Now, you think about that for just a second. And those of you who understand physics or chemistry or any of these molecular resonance things, you need to listen to me. They chose the water molecule frequency for Wi-Fi. The new Wi-Fi, they've chosen the iodine resonance frequency for the new Wi-Fi 6. And in the home Wi-Fi systems that are coming out, and in the VR headsets and all these gaming consoles, they're going to be using the oxygen molecule resonance frequency for the new Wi-Fi. You stupid idiot! Listen to me! My gosh, I've been talking about this for how many years? I'll tell you something. There's going to come a day when Joe Imbriano is dead and buried and long gone from the face of this corrupt plane. But let me tell you something. You can't try to blame me for not trying to warn people. I might as well get into this a little bit. Since we have a few minutes here, shall we? Do I have your attention? I have to give a shout out to my mother and my father, who just literally gave everything to their children. And they made sure, even though it probably wasn't the best thing to do, they thought it was the best thing to do by putting me in private education, making sure I got a college education. And, I went through the educational system, and I guess you could say they cubed me, right? There's a picture of me graduating in 1989 with a square thing on my head. Unfortunately, they cubed me when I was a stupid kid, right? But I was able to use this education in a way to help people, in a way to understand what the evil ones were doing, so I could convey the intentions and the means and manner of escape to the masses, so that the innocent and unsuspecting could not be victimized. And God has given me the faculty and ability to convey this information. And He has given me the wisdom to discern between truth and lies. And He has created in me a tongue to deliver it. We need to use what God has given us for the benefit of others, not for self-serving interests. I might as well tell you this. My father would get up at 3:20 in the morning, 6 days a week, to get to the box factory he worked at, 50 miles away from the house. And he drove a 1968 Ford Galaxy to this factory for decades to save every nickel and dime so his wife could stay home and raise the children. And he made sure all his children that he thought was a good thing to do got an education, right? Let me tell you something, folks. My father died an early death. And, my mother, she lived a really hard life raising us and doing what she could. But it wasn't in vain, because let me tell you something. Because their efforts produced offspring that have grown up to help others, not to heap up earthly treasures and live in filth and greed and selfishness like the degeneracy that is doing this to all of your children. Okay? And, the Bible talks about, I should say, let's refer to the New Testament, shall we? In the book of Ephesians, it talks about honoring your father and mother that your days may be long on the earth. And let me tell you something, folks. Honoring your father and your mother comes in a lot of shapes and forms. Number one, you respect them. And by the way, young people, if you're listening to me, don't be stupid idiots and think your parents are idiots, man. Your parents have been through stuff that you haven't been through yet, and they're trying to warn you so you don't go through it and screw up and make a very bad outcome for yourself. My point is, folks, what God has given you, whether it be the ability, I had a good friend of mine. His talents were working with his hands, and he did things for me that his contribution. He made a frame for my banner so that I could be out on the sidewalk in front of this high school in Fullerton and actually have these signs in stands and frames that stood up by themselves, because I couldn't get these parents to help me. They just ignored me. Their children all made fun of me. And, by the way, you young people that made fun of me at this high school, good luck having children, right? And good luck losing the weight, right? And good luck dealing with these strange uterine issues, right? And you parents that rammed your children through the Adderall epidemic and, all the crap, good luck for you. That's all I can say. Because let me tell you something, folks. Let me tell you something. Can you hear me? I'm going to tell you something right now. You need to listen to me. Today's a good day. Let me tell you why. Because I haven't shaved for a week. Can you see me now, nice and close up? Can you see Mr. Imbriano in real rare form here? By the way, this is what I look like when I don't shave for a week, okay? To the gray? I'll tell you something. All I got to do is dye my hair and clean it up, and that's why my wife is still very happy. She's a lovely woman, and she's a great lady. And by the way, another shout out to my wife for standing by me all these years, for being married to me for 25 years and standing by me and having my back the whole time. And let me tell you something. She is more beautiful inside and outside than all of the ounces of beauty in every one of these degenerate parents in Fullerton that turned their back on everything that I tried to warn them about. And you people that did this to these children, man, I'll tell you right now, I would not want to be you on Judgment Day. So the reality here is, folks, the reality here is that we need to honor our parents' struggles and efforts to raise us and to turn us into what we've become, and honor God because of what he's done by creating us and giving us life, with our actions to warn others, with our actions to help others, with our actions to enlighten others, and with our ability to tell truth in a time of universal deceit, which has now become a revolutionary act. Because the average person today has turned into a moron. And you want to know something, folks? It is not their fault, okay? Most people are stupid because they've been dumbed down and they've been victimized. Let me tell you who's responsible for this. The people that are being paid by the government to turn people into idiots and to deceive them. Those are the ones that have the responsibility to right the wrong. We have the responsibility to expose the wrong. Do you understand me? We have the responsibility to warn people about things that they will never hear on television, that they will never hear in a classroom, that they will never hear on the radio, that they will never read in a magazine, that they will never hear in church. Because why? All these churches are a bunch of worthless, non-profit corporations run by pickpocket pimps in the pulpit. That's right. That's right. So guess what? All of us, one person at a time, have a duty. Now, this one's been going for 36 minutes. I guess you're still here. I don't care if these people don't believe you. I don't care if they don't listen to you. I don't care if they make fun of you. That's not my problem. It is their problem. Our job is to tell the truth. Think about this for just a moment, folks. Think about this. 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life. What did they do with the truth? They nailed it to the cross. You think this world is receptive to the truth? Well, it never has been, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. What did he do? He laid his life down for us, right? Think about it. And now look, the Catholic Church has their trophy hanging up over their Masonic altar, right? They've got, look, we got him. See, we bagged this guy. Look, he's dead. That's their trophy, right? By the way, if you haven't figured out that's what's up with that crucifix thing, that statue of him hanging there dead, you know, that's the trophy, folks. That's the trophy that says, hey, we got him. No, you never got him. They got you. By the way, the Catholic Church, at the very top, folks, I mean, my gosh, when you look into what the Vatican's involved in, it doesn't take much research, okay? I don't want to get too far off track here, folks, but listen to me. There's a reason why people can't sleep. There's a reason why people can't lose weight. There's a reason why people can't conceive children. And it's all because of what the schools did 10 years ago. And it's been going for a long time. The reason I did this video today is because, you know, these people in my community that are directly responsible for this, all they could do is wax their Teslas, right? That's all they got. And when they die, were they going to bury him in their Tesla? I mean, really, they've traded, you know, that's their 30 pieces of silver, folks. I mean, it's really sad, but at the same time, it's really disgusting. But nonetheless, you know, we got to shake the dust off of our feet and move on like I've done. You know, I tried for years to reach people in my community. And, you know, I finally said, I'll take it to the world. And it's been a much greater success reaching, you know, literally millions of people with this information. And so my hands are clean. Your hands are clean. You got to warn people. But let me tell you something, folks. When I get emails and people are having health issues, you know, the last thing you want to do is have a doctor solve your problems because all they're going to do is make them worse. What you want to do, folks, is pay attention to what doesn't seem natural and start questioning things that you haven't questioned before, okay? And ask Jesus to forgive you of your blindness and ask him to take the blindness away. Ask him for wisdom. Pray for wisdom and pray for the blindness to be lifted off of other people in your family. You know, my family thinks I'm crazy. You know, I've got siblings who literally think I've lost my mind. You know, they believe in all this medical hocus pocus and, you know, government propaganda and everything else. They got televisions in their house. It's sad. You know, they choose to go along with it. I mean, sometimes a prophet is not welcome in his own community, right? Isn't that what they did? What happened to all the prophets? They, in the Old Testament. Not that I'm a big fan of the Old Testament, but they murdered them all. They're like, get this guy out of here, kill him, stone him, cut him in half, nail him upside down to something, right? That's what they do with the truth. They nailed the truth to the cross 2,000 years ago. You think the truth is any more well received today? It's probably even more poorly received. But that doesn't mean we stop trying. We have a duty, okay? So with those words, I'd like to close this out. This is a sensitive issue, but it's one of those things that needs to be put out there, and it's really sad because the chickens are coming home to roost with this infertility epidemic. It was all preventable and avoidable, and I would like to know someday, and I'm sure I will find out someday, all the people that got to be born because I warned people all these years not to sterilize their daughters with these devices. And I'm sure when I get to heaven, I'll get to meet all these people that got to be born because of what I was involved in. And that's the blessing that God has for me. And that's the blessing that God will have for you. You're going to meet people whose lives were made possible or whose lives were redeemed because of what you did. And let me tell you something, folks. There's no greater reward than helping others. There's no greater reward than saving other people's lives from sudden or imminent destruction, which is what's happening right now, which is what I've dedicated many years of my life doing, is to warn people about the lies and the disinformation and the agendas. It is incumbent upon all of us to do the same. I'll close on this. My daughter, she's a lovely young lady, and she plays guitar. She's a self-taught musician. She writes, composes, plays, sings. She's just a fabulous young lady. So is my other daughter. Same thing. But, I just had her guitar restrung, and then one of the strings broke. So I had to go to a guitar center last night and have the guy, restring that one string that broke. And boy, folks, let me tell you something. The darkness in the music industry. I could feel it when I walked in the store, and, I even saw it in the guy's eyes that, when I went up to the front, he was looking at me and he was singing some of these, satanic songs, kind of on a low tone of his voice. It's sad, folks. It's a dark world. But you know what? Like my daughter, she's a bright light in that dark music world, folks. You can be a bright light in whatever world you're in, whatever part of it you walk in. It's just up to us to shine. And let me tell you something. These evil scum that are doing this to us are like a bunch of dirty rats. And I don't know if you've ever been in a dark basement or a dark building or a dark, old abandoned place. But man, it could be full of rats, and you could walk in there in the dark and you can't see or hear a thing. But you could literally light a cigarette lighter, a candle, or a small flashlight, and you watch them scatter like nobody's business. Because these evil rat bastards hate the light, folks. And just remember that. They hated Jesus Christ. They hated his light. They hate his light today. Some of them brag about how they'd crucify him again if they could. I forget the gal's name, that comedian. She said, I'd kill him again, right? Good luck with that on Judgment Day. But my point is they hate the light, folks, and it's up to us to be the light. And we can't lose if we're on the right side, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cut this broadcast. In the name of Jesus Christ, we go. This was a long one today, but we got an early start. I want to thank you all for tuning in. This has been another broadcast of the Fullerton Informer. Your host, Joe Imbriano, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834, on the web at thefullertoninformer.com, WiFiDangers.com, CellTowerDangers.com, 5GDangers.com. On it goes, folks. Onward, Christian soldiers, ladies and gentlemen, as you were, in Jesus' name. Take care.